Thanks for joining us for the Hospitality Hangout, a hospitality-focused podcast where the founders of Branded Hospitality Ventures share their insights and bring technology and innovation leaders that are making things happen in the industry we love. My name is Jimmy Frischling, otherwise known as the Finance Guy. I'd like to introduce my partner, Mr. Michael Schatzberg, also known as the Restaurant Guy.
And thanks for that kind and warm introduction, Jimmy. And to all those listening, feel free to call me Shatsy. And together, we are the personalities behind Branded Strategic Hospitality. We work at the intersection of hospitality, food service, technology, innovation, capital, and of course, let's not forget incredible books and things like that. Jimmy, you know that that's a big part of our value proposition. We love reading, we love writing, we love all sorts of books and things like that. In fact, I curled up to a great book this weekend. It was raining a little bit, so I got a great book about the digital restaurant. And I love nothing more than digging into a good book about the digital ecosystem. Anyway, Jimmy, we got an incredible show, all kidding aside. And I got to tell you, Jimmy, but there's just two things I was thinking about this weekend. Do you want me to tell you what they were?
Please, share.
Outside of the incredible book that I read, which from what I understand will become a movie, and guess who will be playing the lead role in the movie? That's right, Shatsy will be. Anyway, I got to tell you, Jimmy, I was thinking about the Weekend Update, this incredible newsletter that Jimmy and Julia put together every Saturday morning without fail. The Weekend Update comes out into everyone's inbox. So if you subscribe, go to theweekendupdate.news. Put your email in there, check it out, read it once. If you don't like it, cancel. But I gotta tell you, I think you're gonna really like it. It's really fun and entertaining. It's a very quick read, and I gotta tell you, everyone's loving it. So check out the weekendupdate.news, subscribe. I think you're gonna dig it. And you know what it costs to read this newsletter, Jimmy?
Sounds very expensive. Must be very expensive.
Listen, with the content you're putting in there, I've seen newsletters at $20, $30, $40, $100 a month. I've seen newsletters for $1,000 a month. Jimmy, this newsletter is free.
Free.
It's free.
It's good.
And the last thing I was thinking about, because that was on Saturday morning, I read the newsletter and I said, I got to talk about this. The other thing I want to talk about, if you're an operator and you're looking for a technology solution out there, trying to figure out what's the best inventory system, what's the best scheduling system, online ordering system, point of sale, whatever you're thinking about, go to boom.store. Go to boom.store, check it out. And we have over 450 different tech providers listed on there, ratings, reviews. Jimmy, I got to tell you, you got to check it out. And Jimmy, this is another thing. You know what this cost?
Sounds very expensive.
You would think between the Weekend Update and the Boom.store, you'd be spending a couple $100 a month, right? No, it's free. It's free, Jimmy. So check out Boom.store. Go there, check it out, search, rate, review your favorite technology, the best. You want to learn a little something, it's all there, okay? That's all I have to say. Those are my shameless plugs. Jimmy, let's get on to it because we've got a great show.
We do, Shatsy. Now, you know what I got to tell you? I appreciate the shameless plugs you made for our Weekend Update, our Marketplace Boom. But we do have two fantastic guests, and we got to jump into the podcast, or they're going to ask their own booker and producer, why the hell did you bring me back to these guys?
I agree.
You know what? Here's a tease. They've been with us before. Okay, we are very excited for today's episode. We get to welcome back our friends, Carl Orsbourn, Meredith Sandland, authors of the book, Delivering the Digital Restaurant.
Second book.
Your Roadmap to the Future of Food, and to talk about their new book, Delivering the Digital Restaurant, The Path to Digital Maturity. We're going to have a lot of fun today, so let's get into it. Listen, because our podcasts are released on Tuesdays, we now have introduced the section Trivia Tuesdays. Please never confuse it with Taco Tuesdays. Each week we share some fun trivia questions about each of our guests. But here's the catch. You have to tune into the end of the episode to find out the answers. The way we play Trivia Tuesdays, we're going to play a game, Two Truths and a Lie. Shatsy, I know you know how to play it.
And I've been killing it. This is my jam.
Yeah, so here we go. I'm going to list 3 facts. I say that in air quotes, facts, about our friends Carl and Meredith. 2 are true, 1 is false. Here we go. Meredith's husband is a hypnotist. Fact 2, Carl was once hypnotized to bark like a dog. I have to tell you, I couldn't say that line without smiling. Carl was hypnotized to bark like a dog. And fact 3.
That I'm going to go with. I got to tell you, because anytime you see these hypnotists on stage, they're always doing that. They're always making someone bark like a dog.
Chicken.
Do
I
the
think that's
chicken?
fake. I think
Yeah, but it's an animal. They make you act like an animal.
Chicken. All right, but fact 3. Meredith was the one who hypnotized Carl to bark like a dog. Okay, Meredith's husband's a hypnotist. Carl was once hypnotized to bark like a dog, and Meredith was the one to hypnotize Carl to bark like a dog.
I already know the answers, by the way, Jimmy.
Right.
We already know the answer to that. Okay.
All right, here we go. Now we get to bring in our guests. Remember, please stick around to the end of the episode to get the answers. All right, Carl and Meredith, you guys are KG veterans. You know the drill. You've been on our show before. We're going to let you guys take the lead. Please give us a little background about yourselves and, of course, how you met to collaborate. For anyone who have missed the first time you did this episode, did the hospitality hang out with us.
Well, we're so excited to be here, and I love the newsletter also. I have to say that is my preferred thing to curl up on the sofa with on a rainy Saturday.
I'm going to bark like a dog in about a minute. I think she's using her powers on me already, Jimmy. Jimmy, it's Meredith who's the one.
I am. I mean, I am your avid reader.
I love it.
Exactly right. Well, I am Meredith Sandland, and as you said, co-author of the 2 books, Delivering the Digital Restaurant, Your Roadmap to the Future of Food, as well as the one that just came out, Delivering the Digital Restaurant, The Path to Digital Maturity. And where did we come from? Why did we write these books? Well, my background, I was at Taco Bell for many years, leading development there and building lots and lots of Taco Bells, and started to wonder, why are we building all these Taco Bells next to malls when no one goes to malls anymore? That seems kind of weird. And that planted a seed, which only grew when we tried to enter Manhattan. And I thought, why are we paying the world's most expensive real estate prices when 40% of our sales are going out the door delivery? So that seed grew. And I thought it sure would be great if there was a commissary that we could just deliver all this food out of, rather than having a really expensive store. And fast forward a couple of years, I met the guys at Kitchen United, who at the time were 3 guys in an old culinary school. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're making the thing that I as the customer want. And so I went and joined them and got the business model established and raised the initial capital and all those good things. And about that time, my story intersected with Carl's.
That's how it all happened.
Wait for it. Here comes Shatsy. Don't interrupt. There was a handoff. Don't interrupt, Shatsy.
Woof, woof.
And that's when she hypnotized me. And so Meredith obviously came from, according to many metrics, the largest restaurant company in the world. And I was at that time working at just before I met Meredith, at a large oil and gas company. But I'd spent 15 of my 18 years in the retail space, and at that time I'd just finished running a 1,000-unit franchise chain by the name of AM/PM. And I wanted to get into something a bit more innovative, faster paced, perhaps more akin to where the future is heading, because convenience these days is really managed by a small little company called Amazon, as opposed to these gas station stores out there. And so, I wanted to speak to folks that had made that transition from big company blue chip world into the startup environment. And a mutual friend of Meredith and mine introduced us. And it was through the conversation there that Meredith said, yeah, well, I'm doing this thing in ghost kitchens now. And at that time I thought, well, this is a doozy, isn't it? Because what the heck is a ghost kitchen? This
sounds scary. I'll tell you that, girl. Sounds scary.
Yeah, I was like, all right, well, let's wrap this up quickly. But soon, as you can imagine, Meredith started to explain the logic, as she was just alluding to there, about why ghost kitchens made so much sense. And I was immediately drawn in. The fact that Google Ventures were behind Kitchen United as well was further evidence behind the kind of movement at that time. And of course, all of this, guys, was before the pandemic, right? Before every restaurant became a ghost kitchen. And very quickly, I came on board with the team, helped them build out the operating model. And, between us, we met pretty much every big restaurant chain in the States that was looking to explore ghost kitchens, trying to understand the digital disruption that was happening, trying to, see whether this is a flash in the pan or something that really needed to be taken seriously or not. And you look, it's tough. When you're doing something new, it's not easy to help people see that future, especially when, there's hundreds of millions of dollars being plowed into this space. And a lot of restaurants at that time were very begrudging towards the whole idea of this. And really, that's where the genesis of the initial book came, because I said to Meredith, I said, look, it would be a lot easier if we could just get these guys a book, get these guys a book which tells the story as to why this is happening, why the consumer is driving this change. And Meredith said to me, yeah, great idea, go get one. And I think that's where Meredith was hoping our book conversation and the story was going to end, quite honestly. But that's not where it ended. Obviously, very quickly, we found out that there wasn't such a book that existed. We went on to, after leaving Kitchen United, to write the book, interviewed over 100 different executives, both here in the US and further afield, from restaurants.
I don't recall getting that call, by the way.
You didn't get that call? Yeah, no, I spoke to
you.
They did try and call. I remember that. Yeah, I do remember you calling, and I couldn't take the call. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to get you to buy some books. I think that's what it was. But pay for the color copy, Shatsy. But
I hear
you. we ended up having great success with it. It became an international bestseller. We've, as I was just mentioning before the start of the call, it's now being translated into Romanian. The Romanian Restaurant Association is wanting to get it.
That's the start. Every book that starts out in Romanian, generally it leads to many other countries, from what I'm told.
Right.
So I think
they're early adopters over there.
Early adopters.
So generally, this will probably go to 130 languages worldwide after this. But listen, the last time you guys were on the podcast was June. And we ended the episode with breaking news that you were ready to release a bonus chapter in the first book, Delivering the Digital Restaurant. But it turns out that the bonus chapter actually became the second book.
Boom.
The second book.
Yeah.
Can you share more about how this played out?
Well, you're right. That's exactly how it was. And then it turned into a couple of chapters, and then 3 chapters. And then we said, look, this is something that needs to probably have its own kind of covers. And for that,
when we started, we thought, bonus chapter, no big deal. And when the first draft was 17,000 words long, and just for perspective, a typical chapter is 3,000 to 5,000 words. So we were like, this is a big problem. Either we're going to have to dramatically trim
it's a big chapter,
or this is going to be more than one chapter. And I think what happened was we had done all of these, speaking tour conversations with restaurants, and the same questions kept coming up over and over and over again. And we thought, we probably should release a book answering those questions, because while the first book really answered that why is this happening, as Carl said, there were so many questions we were getting about, okay, I get it, I accept the why this is happening, I need to do it, but how? And so the second book is really about the how.
The path to digital maturity.
How? It has a different tone as well, though, guys. The first one is very much more businessy in nature. This one is more of a playbook, right? So it's scattered throughout our tips. At the end of every chapter, there are worksheets. So it's something really where we're hoping that every restaurant that picks it up, every restaurant owner operator that picks it up, finds their place on this path that we're talking about, the path to digital maturity. And because of where we're at now with the pandemic in our rearview mirror, we're trying to help folks say, look, now's the time for focus. Focus on where you are on this path to digital maturity. Get good at that. Optimize yourself in that position, and then move on to the next. Because the problem today is that the average restaurant has somewhere between 15 to 20 different pieces of technology. They're probably not using each of those pieces of technology as fully and as capably as they probably can. So now we're saying, look, focus in on this, get good at it, and then move on to the next step on the path.
I'm digging this, and I'm going to jump in. I will say, I think you guys were way ahead of the curve. And I think you've become really the thought leaders in this space. And I try to explain to a lot of my friends who are very good at being guests of restaurants, but they don't necessarily understand the workflow and the processes and the complexity. Because they are guests, they apply their guest experience and project it onto these businesses without understanding how this is a unique industry where the manufacturing facility and the retail facility are either just on a wall separates them, and with the way kitchens are being designed now, there's no wall. Manufacturing, retail, right there, one place, and now you have this spike in off-premise and the omni-channel that isn't. And again, I love what you guys have done. So let's take a step back and define what is the digital maturity. What does the digital maturity mean? In short, you define it as a fully mature digital restaurant that takes advantage of all the technology tools available. Since I just read that from your book, Can you elaborate a bit more for our listeners to share how an operator could recognize where they fall on the maturity scale?
Yeah, so for us, a digitally mature restaurant is, and there's a story that is told in this, Jimmy, as you go through it, because in many ways, a fully digitally mature restaurant is one that in many ways needs to reorient its entire business model towards what it's going to take to become digitally mature. As we get to the very back end of the book, we talk about the digitally native restaurant and holistic technology. And the digitally native restaurant, I'll let Meredith elaborate on this in a moment, but it's basically what we're saying is the next big category of restaurants. Ones that have actually reorientated their entire business, not just like added on some technology and tried to Frankenstein everything together to make it work, but actually it's being built from the ground up to be fully optimized for off-premise consumption. But then we also, in the last chapter, we talk about holistic technology, and that in many ways is a reference to the technologists out there that also need to do things differently to enable restaurants to become digitally mature, where you create more of a symbiotic relationship, where you have this interdependency between different technologies to truly allow the restaurant's operating system to hum at its maximum capacity.
I love it. Let's take a deeper dive. Let's dig more into this book. The path to digital maturity, you categorize in 4 steps. 4 steps. Grow sales, make space, shift POV, digital maturity. Without giving the book away to Jimmy, I'm going to wait for the movie to come out. What can you share high level on the thought process behind these categories? And can you explain each category to our listener?
Listeners,
Yeah, absolutely.
Chatsy, we have more than one listener. You got listeners.
Yeah.
Thousands.
Just me, you, and Jimmy. Just Jimmy.
All right, I'm sorry. Meredith, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Like,
that one guy who's out there.
One guy.
Yep,
One
here's
person.
to you. All right. Let's start with gross sales. So
we grew our listenership by 100%, by the way.
Ooh, that's exciting.
We have one listener.
Yeah. So let's start with gross sales. I think the attractive thing about all of this digitization delivery stuff and the way that it was sold to restaurants was you can have incremental sales volume. Keep your dine-in, keep your walk-in traffic, and then tack onto that some incremental sales volume associated with either third-party delivery or first-party order ahead or whatever it might be. And that was, I think, certainly the case at the very beginning. Some would argue now that it is reached a point where it's no longer incremental. I think Noah Glass-Adolo would say that actually the digital entirety is going to take over the whole restaurant. All transactions will be digital, whether they're on-prem or off-prem. But certainly digital can grow sales. And we start with the very first chapter being about the third parties. And it is a controversial first chapter, I think, because many restaurants have a love-hate relationship with these third parties. They're driving sales, but they don't love the fees. They don't love losing their guest information and connection. They don't love the lack of control that they have in the process of it going out, right? There's a lot of things about it that are not great.
D, all the above. Anyway, sorry.
I think the only thing we like is the sales.
Exactly. But we start with this chapter because there is an important role for these third parties to play, and they can help your restaurant be found. So the very first chapter is called Be Found. Hungry consumers go to these marketplaces to find what to eat. And if they're not familiar with your brand, that is the first place they're going to go. And I compare it to the food court at the mall. When Yum enters a foreign country for the first time, they take their brands to the food court at the mall. Historically, probably we're starting to get away from that, but historically they have. Why do they do that? They're paying top dollar rent. Often the rents are 2x what they might be street side, but they're doing it because consumers are going there, they're seeing the brand, they're getting exposed to it, they're trying it, and then they're able to migrate to street side and drive through and all the rest of it in the country. And the third-party marketplaces are just the same, right? You might be paying top dollar to be on that digital real estate, but you're getting exposed to a whole bunch of consumers who might not otherwise find your brand. Mm-hmm. And so we talk a lot about how to maximize the potential that your brand is found on these third parties in that chapter, including, by the way, Google ordering. We lump them together with the third parties because consumers do a lot of search there. Talk about search engine optimization and viewing these third parties as search engines for food. But then remind you, if you're going to bring them in, don't be resentful of them. Don't resent that channel. Treat it well, because the whole purpose of it is to find new consumers and impress them with your food.
Yeah, I love it. Let me ask you
I
something.
love.
What about the I mean, just it kind of dovetails a little bit in this. Did you read that this week, or maybe it was last week, that Uber was scrubbing their platform? They had like 40,000 virtual brands where basically it was exactly the same menu. It was Jimmy's Wings, Joe's Wings, Bob's Wings. It was every kind of wing, but it was all coming from Jimmy's restaurant. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? When you think about third party, I mean, it's a great platform, but at the end of the day, it's loaded up, and then it's like you discover it's hard to discover because Jimmy's got 400 wing concepts all coming out of the same place.
I like
Totally
wings.
right. It's a real challenge. I mean, I recorded a video recently because this first chapter that Meredith is referring to is my favorite chapter in the entire book, because for me it's all about the fact that now you've gone from a yellow pages that once upon a time was relatively thin to this huge yellow pages and has loads of restaurants in it. And so it's a digital real estate game. That's all it is, right? If someone's searching for wings, is it better for me to search of the 4 different concepts coming from my restaurant as opposed to them searching from 4 separate ones? So what Uber's done here, I think, is actually very smart. I think it's going to improve the guest experience entirely.
Yeah, no, 100%. It was very interesting. I don't know if a lot of the consumers out there recognize that that's even happening. So I think it goes back to the way it used to be. I remember back in the day when we first started on like Seamless Web, which of course then became Grubhub. I mean, you had to prove that you had a brick and mortar. You had to send them your menu. I mean, there was a whole vetting process. It wasn't just and the menu prices had to match your menu prices in store. It was a much. So I think maybe it's starting to get a little bit more control back, which I think is a good thing for the consumers and the restaurants.
Well, I think that is true, but there will still continue to be virtual restaurants, right? So Uber was one of the early creators.
Oh no, I love the virtual. I was just talking about the idea that some folks are hijacking it and they're just like putting they're just stacking on it. I mean, they scrubbed 40,000 menus off. But anyway, just a thought that we were talking about.
It will end up differentiating into what is truly a virtual brand, right? Someone who has invested in brand, built relationship with consumer, that happens to be fulfilled out of wherever it's fulfilled out of, right? Instead of just these SEO tricks.
Yeah, like Mr. Beast, that's a virtual brand.
It's a brand.
Jimmy just coming up with 47 different names of wing concepts. Well, that's just hijacking the digital real estate, as Carl was saying, right?
Yeah. I don't know why you're picking on my wing concept, but I will say the following: when I heard what I read about what Uber was doing, I actually thought about the famous Yogi Berra quote, which was, "It's so popular, no one goes there anymore." I think there was such an explosion of brands, and I absolutely believe this digital experience, this digital proposition is absolutely here to stay. I think it reminds me when my daughter was applying to kindergarten, and every school would say, "We want to meet your child where they're at." I think the importance of the digital restaurant is to meet the guests where they wish to be. The optionality has spiked. And if you overwhelm them, the guests, with so many choices, it's like, how could they possibly sift through to find those digital restaurants or the restaurants with the best digital offering? They become somewhat, murky. It becomes opaque. They can't find the ones that are legitimately succeeding and delivering value, pun intended, in this space. I want to talk about the categorizations. When you guys put this book together, the two of you defined a new restaurant category altogether, which Shats and I really do love and believe in: the digitally native restaurant. Can I ask you guys to share a little more about this and how restaurants will have to disrupt the way they run their own business and create a new business model to fit into this new mold, the digitally native restaurant?
Yeah, so the chapter is titled Disrupt Yourself for exactly that reason, because it is about thinking totally differently about what a restaurant is and how it operates. And I am a student of the restaurant industry, and I love looking back at history. And one of the things that I notice is there are new concepts that come out all the time that drive growth in the industry. And we went from fine dining to counter service to QSR to delivered pizza to casual dining to fast casual. We haven't had a new concept released in restaurants since fast casual. That's over 20 years ago. And it makes you wonder, well, what comes next? What comes after fast casual? And we believe it is the digitally native restaurant. And that restaurant is going to reorganize their entire activity around this digital relationship with the guest. But because of that, they're going to be able to offer more value and more convenience than other categories can. And the way that they'll offer more convenience, I think, is obvious, right? It'll come in the form of delivery. And in the first book, we say, what's more convenient than going through the drive-through? Not having to get in your car in the first place, right? So you'll have delivered convenience. And then it'll actually deliver more value because the way that restaurants spend money today, a whole bunch of money goes to things that I would argue consumers don't really care about, right? Unless they're going to have an experience and, sit down and fine dining, they don't care about the labor costs. They don't care about the real estate costs, right? They care about the food costs. They want to know, how much food am I getting back for my dollar that I'm giving you? And how high quality is that food? And as consumers care more and more about that and about the delivered convenience, you've got to reorient the business model so that you're spending money on the things that consumers care about, which is the quality of the food and the convenience of how the consumer procures it. And we believe the digitally native restaurant does exactly that. Now, there's hundreds of them already out there experimenting in the US today, doing what I'm doing with Empower Delivery. I trip across them all the time, probably because I'm looking for them, but there are hundreds of these guys out there experimenting, and girls experimenting with the business model and seeing, how can I reorient? How can I give the consumer more value, more convenience? And it's amazing to see. I think it will coalesce into the highest growth category in the industry.
It's funny. I always joke at our restaurants. It's you don't generally have customers coming in saying, "I got to tell you, the food's terrible, but I got to tell you, I understand your labor costs are incredible, or your food's horrible, but I understand your operational costs or your inventory system is wonderful from what I got." I mean, generally, it's about the food. I mean, if the food, it always starts out, if the food isn't good, then you've really you got nothing, right?
100%.
So,
and
yeah.
the food, the demands for the quality of food are just going up. Someone sent me an article yesterday about how millennials are 3 times more likely to order delivery than baby boomers. And I thought, well, that makes all the sense in the world. And why? Because if you follow, like NPD would say, that the rise of QSR in the 1990s and 2000s, what that was working baby boomer mothers trying to feed their millennial children in between jobs, school, and after school activities.
Right.
And now, fast forward, those millennial children have grown up and they're trying to do the same thing, but they want better food.
Better food.
Right? They're saying,
Yes.
How can I get that same convenience that my mom got at the drive-thru for me when I was a child, but I want to get whatever it is they want to get. They want to get vegan food, or they want to get salads, or they want to get scratch-made whole food, whatever it is that they're into. They're trying to procure those things for their children. And the answer is delivery.
Yeah, and I think it dovetails into it. It's interesting. My kids are 18, 20, and 22. And they will only order digitally. They won't ever use the phone to call anybody. Nobody. I mean, nothing. No one will ever get a phone call, and they will not call anybody. And they're also obsessed with the quality of the food, the ingredients. That's why I think emerging brands that are reaching out to different flavor profiles in different regions of the world to bring different, it's not just burgers and pizza. I mean, there's so many interesting things, whether it be Greek or Thai, et cetera, and Indian. And that's why these are so many great emerging brands are coming up, and they're using better ingredients, because I think a lot of the younger generation are really concerned about the over-processed, et cetera. And it's not just the flavor. It's got to be super high quality, to your point. So it's really interesting. Let's just shift gears a little bit and talk about technology a little bit, because I mean, after all, digital, it's technology. The last chapter of your book, you talk about how tech companies need to do things differently in order to reach restaurants, creating what you're calling a symbiotic restaurant system. Symbiotic. I like to call it the SRS, Jimmy. That's what I always call it, the SRS. Can you elaborate a little bit on SRS?
Yeah, for sure. Look, the part of the reason why this falls at this stage, or at the end of the book, is because in a way it is a message to the technologists. The technologists need to help restaurants truly become better at what they do. And today, we're seeing a lot of consolidation, right? I was at a conference just last week in Vegas, and I kid you not, I must have seen 10, 15 different technology providers saying, you're all in one solution. You're all in one solution. And it's like, oh, great. Now I can buy these guys and I can go home. I'm done. The problem is those all-in-one solutions aren't really doing everything. They're doing maybe a little bit, or they're doing everything average.
Right.
And
They don't do everything great. Right.
They don't do everything great. And
Not
sometimes
even good enough.
Yeah, and sometimes those things have been acquired through acquisition, and sometimes they have been built internally, but they've been built for a specific need state. And part of our challenge in this book to the technologists is to say, how do we get to create an ecosystem where the different technologies can work together in this symbiotic relationship? And what I mean by that in very practical terms is, imagine you have some form of data input that comes in to the restaurant. Let's say you get 2 cooks that call out tonight that are ill. Well, that obviously is going to feed into your payroll system, maybe your scheduling system. But what if it could link into your open table, so that if therefore your amount of table reservations tonight are restricted? What if it fed into my company's setup with Juicer, so that way your off-premise prices perhaps go up by 5% to accommodate that, to quench some of that demand? Imagine if that one little bit of data, that one input to the restaurant operating system, can then have this interdependent relationship that creates a better overall system for the restaurant to manage. Because you speak to any restaurant GM today, and they'll say, when that stuff happens, it doesn't matter what technology is in place. I got to deal with it. I got to deal with those kind of problems. And I think that's where technology still has a role to play. It's still some journey for us to go on. And I'm excited about that, but it's going to need to be more than just your typical APIs. It's not, and you just need to look at the big established players out there today, and the time it's taking to bring new technology innovations into their systems, and the way in which this whole kind of setup is creating a complicated arrangement of time to bring that innovation to market. What we need almost is the equivalent of the Apple operating system with the App Store, right? And you've got to go through the necessary steps to qualify to be a good app on the App Store. But then, if you want this app, if you want to turn it on, if you want it to be like a Chrome plugin, then it's live and active. And my company in Juicer with dynamic pricing, we're trying to be that type of headless commerce approach. And for some folks that haven't heard of headless commerce before, I try to characterize it as like a Chrome plugin, not Chrome, but a plugin that you've got available to you that works within the Chrome system.
No, I think you're crushing it, and I'll give Schatz his SRS, Symbiotic Restaurant System. At Branded, we call it, for technologists, we want to work and support and specifically invest in ones, we call it operator-centric, allies to the operator. If they're not building for and thinking about the integrations and the bundled solution and the friction, which is disastrous when these things don't work together. I know there's been an explosion, and I dare say even a saturation of tech, but the fact is we're in the early innings, because we're nowhere near this symbiotic restaurant system, which you articulated much better than we ever do. But we're always telling tech companies, your customer, the restaurant is your customer. Help them take care of their guests. Do not try to squeeze in between the operator and their guests, which is what I think a lot of tech companies unfortunately still do and think about. Listen, while putting this book together, you interviewed some of the top CEOs, owners, influencers of the industry. Schatz, your phone was busy. I told you had to work that. And I know this question might be akin to asking you who your favorite child is. But if you're comfortable, can you share, maybe, is there anyone specific that you interviewed that certainly was maybe uniquely or most impactful to helping you create the content? I know they all were helpful and impactful. Anyone come to mind that you want to share with our audience?
And I'd like you to mention names.
Okay, let's do it.
Name. You know what's funny? In the first book, I think Alex Cantor had the most quotes in the first book.
Alex Cantor, okay, there's a big shout out.
That was book one. Book one.
And then Zach Goldstein also had a very significant portion in the book. And
Zach Goldstein, big shout out there.
Just incredible thought leaders in the industry, and they do show up in the second book as well. But I think in the second book, I don't know, Carl, what you think, but I would say Abhinav Kapoor of Bicky.
Nice.
I gotta tell you what's interesting here. You know what's interesting here? All 3 of the people you just mentioned have great hair. Isn't that interesting?
I
That's
had
something
not
we got
thought
to think
about.
about. Do
Yeah.
people that have great hair,
Yeah.
are they good people to be interviewing for your third book?
Well, maybe it's like because their brain is so smart, it's like fertilizer for their hair.
Jimmy,
I don't know. I don't know.
think about it. All great hair.
I got to contest this one because I was going to say that
Oh, contest. I like it. Go ahead.
there's a guy called Stephen Crowley that we interviewed in the first book and the second book. There aren't many people that necessarily appear in both books, and Stephen doesn't have much hair, but he's part of a company called Service Physics, and there's a component part of the middle of the book we didn't talk about today, which is about making space, in the sense of all these additional sales are being thrown on top of today's current operating system of a restaurant. And companies like Service Physics are helping restaurants figure out how to change their operating model to make the necessary space to really be able to give the guest a great experience. Because, if you don't adapt your operation in the same way as drive-thru had to adapt its operation when that was introduced, you're going to create a poor experience. And guys, look, the off-premise experience today is not good. You just look at any stat or any surveys that are done, the guest is actually getting increasingly frustrated with accuracy, timeliness, all those types of things. And so, as much as we're big proponents and we will say, look, be excited about off-premise, we've got to do a better job. And that starts at the heart of operations. And Stephen Crowley, he's doing some great things. And that's why him and his business partner were in book 2 as well.
Yeah, but I think you bring up a very good point. First, I do remember that part in the book, and it wasn't as good as the other 3 parts. So I'm going to stick with a lot of hair, better interview. Just kidding. Just kidding. I will say, to your point, as restaurants are being built, they're certainly building them different. I mean, they're just building them different because they're taking that into account. I mean, you've got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of existing restaurants that are really either being retrofitted or just trying to deal with this explosion of off-prem in the same 4 walls and footprint they had to deal with their business before. So to your point, and that'll take time to continue to change. I know that Shake Shack, as they build the new stores, now they're putting drive-thrus in. They never were doing drive-thrus. Some restaurants are retrofitting and putting other lanes in. So it'll continue to happen. But you're right. I mean, that's where it's happening. And I think restaurants, it's a big CapEx, but they'll get to it for sure.
Good time to be in construction. That's what I say. Good time for construction.
Yes.
Listen, I want to shift gears and get to our talking back. Schatz and I started this podcast. We clearly have a lot of fun bringing on great industry folks and pros, and we get to talk with them. But we learned along the way that sometimes our guests have a question for us. So let's kick off talking back. We're going to offer you guys the chance to ask us a question or two. And as we like to say, nothing is off the table. The microphone is yours.
Oh, I love it. Okay, great. So behind Shatty's head, I can see a monitor saying the word hospitality. So guys, what is the best example of digital hospitality you are seeing out there right now?
Ooh, fantastic. Fantastic question.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I mean, I just look at hospitality in a very broad sense, because I think like, Uber and Lyft, to me, that's hospitality. You know what I mean? I just think, so I look at it as very broad. It's not just the app to order online, but that's hospitality. That experience of ordering food, that's hospitality. If there's a lot of friction, then it's not good hospitality. Using a QR code to pay, if it doesn't work really well or it's a lot, that's bad. So I just look at hospitality. It's across the even the airlines. A good airline app. If I'm using digitally to go onto Delta or what have you and check in and pick my seat and order food. I mean, those are all. So I look at it very broad, and I just think that there's a tremendous amount of tech out there. And when folks are thinking about technology and hospitality, I'm not sure that I think they're not connecting all the dots, because even the online reservation system, I mean, that's a form of hospitality. Are you making that easier for us to use? Or is it like Tables, a company that we love, where you can pick the table you want? That's a part of hospitality now. I'm making that a better experience. I can pick the table I want to sit at, not just come in and make a reservation. So many different areas that I love. So it's not one particular company, but I think it's overarching. Jimmy's going to make it so much better.
Well, look, actually, I think it was a great question, and I have several experiences come to mind, but out of respect for the length of our show and our listeners, the one that came to my mind at the top of the list, Schatz and I were heading to the FS Tech conference over in Dallas, and we were boarding our flight when we got a text. Each of us got a text from Marriott Bonvoy about checking in, and getting our digital key and ordering, if we wanted anything to eat or drink, we could do that as well. And as Schatz said, the idea was there, and then the question is, what was the execution? And I have to say, I'll give a shout out to Bonvoy and the whole Marriott crew. The execution was perfect. The check-in, the digital key, we arrived at our room, just went right where we needed to go, walked into our room, and within minutes after arriving, our respective food came to our rooms. And I thought the entire thing was truly a seamless experience, and I noted it. And the next time we were traveling to a conference where that was not offered, none of it was offered, even the kiosks to check in when we got to the hotel weren't working. I really felt like, look what a great experience we had, and recognized it for that seamless digital experience, including getting the food to our room within minutes of our arrival, which they knew, and versus the alternative. So that to me was a unique digital experience that I now remember, and it increases my desire to work with and stay at Marriott hotels because they've created that experience for me, and that was an entirely digital experience. So Shatsy, by the way, ding ding, my answer was much better than yours.
Yeah, no, but you know what I wanted to say? It was really funny because I know exactly what you're talking about. I love that experience. We checked in, which is great, online, got a digital key, great. Got to the hotel, it opened the door, because sometimes it opened the door, great, knock, 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 and there was my burger, beer, and french fries. It was awesome. But I will say to your point about the other experience, it was in Las Vegas. I'm not going to mention the hotel, but you know the conference. It was a big one, and it's a big conference. And that hotel knew that 3,000, and they know the conference name, 3,000 restaurant operators and finance people were coming to their hotel, and they could have had those kiosks working. All of them were out. So a giant conference is coming. Get someone in there to fix that stuff and make it work for that. We got a big conference, and we got to that hotel, and there were like 400 people. Jimmy, we knew almost everyone online because we were all there, we're all friends, and we couldn't believe standing there like idiots, and all we were trying to do is get a key. They had my credit card already. We already booked the room. Get a key. That's all I wanted to do. So I was, can I have my key, please? And we stood there. It took 45 minutes anyway. Listen, this is a great segue right now. And that was a great question, by the way. I really dug it. Food service feud. Are you ready? Food service feud. Here we go.
I'm ready.
We ask over 100,000 people on LinkedIn every Tuesday on a little fun poll that we do every Tuesday. Fun poll, ask random questions about the hospitality, business, food, beverage, whatever. And we asked 100,000 people surveyed to give their feedback on this poll. Are you guys ready to play the food service feud? Meredith, Carl, get your buzzer. Jimmy, you're playing too. Get your buzzers ready. We asked 10 million people, what is your favorite revolving sushi chain? Carl was first before anybody. Carl, go.
Did you like my beep?
I loved it. That was the wrong answer. Go.
Yo Sushi. It's a UK revolving sushi bar that I love.
You know what? I got to tell you, it's not on there. I know it. I guess our producer hasn't been to London in a while. Didn't know it. I'm going to have to go to Jimmy. Jimmy, you can steal it. And
I got a lot of love for Yo Sushi, but wasabi is my answer.
Ding, 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 ding. Wasabi #1 on the board. And a little shout out. That's Bo's. That's Bo's place, right?
Is that Bo's place?
I think Bo.
Right.
I think Bo owns that. Listen, Meredith, not to leave you out. You can still. I'm going to give you a lot of credit. You can get. There's 2, 3, and 4 up on the board.
Kira,
bang, 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 and that is our friend Karen Stutz's restaurant, right? She's involved in Kura Sushi, and then followed by Sushi Rama and Hamazushi Sushi. So don't know those two, but I do know Kura and I do know Wasabi, and they are awesome. So there we go. And the big winner here is our own Jimmy Frischling, and with Meredith pulling in second, and Carl, I've got nothing for you. Got nothing for you or the family in the food
surveying
service.
wrong
I got
people. That's
nothing.
what I'm saying. Wrong
I think
people.
we
meanwhile-
need to remind Carl about the rules of Family Feud. This isn't about
Yes.
your preference. This is about
Yes.
the
Yeah.
respondents' preference.
Yeah, Carl's 10 million
Yes.
people, he asked. 10 million people.
That number keeps going up. Meanwhile, Carl,
Clearly not an
Carl's living in
international
London.
audience, though. You guys, if you want a hospitality hangout to be big in the UK, we've got to get some British brands out there.
There's a little sushi place in Australia I always like. Yeah, it's not about it's not what you like, to Meredith's point. It's what
Meanwhile-
10 million people like.
Meanwhile, Carl's gonna walk into the next Yo Sushi when he's in London, and they're gonna be like, "Carl!"
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
gonna walk into Wasabi, and they're gonna go, "Who are you?" Anyway, all right, listen. At the top of the episode, we played our little game, two truths and a lie. I'm gonna quickly do a refresher. Shatcher, you're gonna have to guess. Remember the three facts: two are true, one's a lie. Meredith's husband is a hypnotist.
I think
Two,
this is like
Carl.
this is like taking candy from a baby. Jimmy.
Carl
Go
was once
ahead.
hypnotized to bark like a dog. And three.
Yes,
Meredith
Carl was definitely hypnotized by a dog.
Go ahead. And what's the second factoid, Shatsy?
I think Meredith's husband's a hypnotist. She hypnotized Carl. He started barking like a dog, and Meredith had a great laugh. Probably
All
did
right.
it at a dinner party, and it was probably hysterical.
All three are true, is what you're saying? All three.
No, he's
wow.
Oh,
saying
no. Meredith was
he's saying
was
you're-
not the one who hypnotized. It was Meredith's husband who did the hypnotizing.
Ah.
1 and 2 are true. Meredith, you did not hypnotize Carl. You do not have those powers.
I do not. I can get him to do a lot of things, like write a book.
Yes, yes.
But no, barking like a dog is not on the list.
But your husband is a hypnotist.
He is a hypnotist.
You see, Jimmy, I am crushing it at this.
You're crushing it.
And he
You're
runs
crushing
the
it.
largest hypnosis conference in the world as well, would you believe so?
Is that right?
Yeah.
He
And
was.
he hasn't hypnotized.
I like
I
it.
can't do that yet. That could be dangerous.
Yeah.
And has he taken the spell off you, Carl? Or are you still barking like a dog?
Woof.
All right, Jimbo, we're jumping right into the quick fire now.
Quick fire, baby.
All right,
Quick
listen,
fire.
we don't have a lot of time here. We're already late. We started a little late, but brand new quick fire. 5 lightning round questions. Here we go. I'm going to ask Carl and Meredith. You'll answer one in tandem. Meredith, you will answer first. Carl, you will take the second one. After each question, I will ask. Okay, here we go. 5 lightning round questions. Meredith, eggs, scrambled or sunny up? Sunny side up.
Sunny.
Carl, same question.
Sunny.
Meredith, where are you getting dinner from tonight?
I don't know. It's
Yo
only like
sushi,
9
yo
a.m.
sushi,
here.
yo sushi. Carl, same question.
Mendocino Farms.
Oh, love Mendocino Farms.
And now we
Great
know
place.
that Carl plans ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, he's been thinking about that since yesterday.
Wow, amazing.
What is your favorite food city in the world? Meredith.
San Francisco.
Carl.
Bangkok.
So exotic, Carl, you know? Yo sushi, now this.
I'm just saying, we've got to
Meredith.
think about you international listeners.
Yeah, where is your favorite place to travel?
Croatia.
Interesting. Carl, same question.
Let's go with the Maldives.
Wow.
Maldives. Have you ever been to the Maldives?
Yeah, for my honeymoon, going back again this year, Shatsy.
Wow. I mean, I gotta hang out with Carl more. I mean, seriously. The Maldives, that's where you see the hotels that are like over the water, like, you know, and you're seeing like you're looking down. Yeah, I gotta get out.
About
Jimmy.
8 months from now, I'll send you a selfie from that very same spot.
I mean, I went like downtown for like that was
Yeah.
vacation, you know. Anyway, all right, Meredith, if you were to challenge Jimmy or I to an Easter egg hunt to collect the most eggs, who would you have better odds of beating?
Shatsy.
Really, Jimmy? Have you shown Meredith a brace on the leg?
Shatsy,
She doesn't know about the leg injury.
You would lose so much interest in the Easter egg hunt. You wouldn't even participate. I think
I'd
Meredith's
get an egg,
answer-
and then I'd say, "What? There's nothing in the egg," and I'd be upset. Carl,
Well, look,
Go, Meredith.
I love
My
to be
theory is-
fair with you guys. I went with Jimmy the last time you asked me this question. I can't remember what it was, so this time I'm going to go with Shatty only because of Jimmy's injury. Jimmy, get well soon, sir.
And Meredith, you were going to say?
So here's my theory: is as the finance guy, he has counted every egg. He knows how many there are, and he's going to keep track of them, and he's going to be on them and get them all until he's done. Whereas you, I think you're more likely to,
I would definitely
get
give up.
distracted by the chocolate bunny.
Yes, thank you, Meredith. I'm not going to agree with everything you just said, just all of it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Listen, Carl and Meredith, thank you so much for joining us today on the Hangout and for sharing all your great insights. We really do love what you guys are doing, not just in your respective companies, but the collaboration, the books, the leadership, the thought leadership. It's really great, and it's very much needed in our industry. And you guys are the OGs of the thought leadership we feel in this digital divide and the transformation we're going through. So thank you for everything you're doing. If you guys, any of our listeners, want to get in touch with Carl and Meredith directly, you can email the podcast team at podcast@brandedstrategic.com. We'd be happy to make the introduction to our listeners. We can't thank you enough for continuing to tune in with us and escalating our subscribership. We make fun that it's like basically the three people and all with the last name Frischling, but the truth is our subscriber base continues to soar, and we know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there and are continuing to roll through episodes and seasons. It couldn't happen without you, so thank you. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any of the exciting guests we have coming up in the future, and better yet, invite a friend to hang out with us the next time. So until then, with great appreciation to Meredith and to Carl, we thank you, and I'll pass it back to my boy Shatsy to close us out.
Thank you, Jimbo, and I just want to make sure that all listeners know where to get this new book, Delivering the Digital Restaurant, The Path to Digital Maturity, coming to a theater near you this summer. Where are we getting the book?
Well, you can certainly get it on Amazon if you like to support those marketplaces. It's on a Kindle version, hardbacks, and
Amazon.com, if anyone has heard of that company.
Yeah.
It is a big company. They sell books. You can go get it there. Also, all Barnes & Noble bookstores. Carl and Meredith will be speaking at Barnes & Noble here in Union Square today. That's a lie. I just made that up. I just always wanted to say that. They'll be signing they'll be signing books at a Barnes & Noble near you. I always wanted to say that.
Well, maybe Barnes & Noble will give us the call now they've heard you. It's, you're putting that out there, Shatsy. So when that
Barnes
happens,
& Noble, if you're looking for a book signing, Carl and Meredith have some time to sign some books. They are ready and able. So again, Delivering the Digital Restaurant, their second book, The Path to Digital Maturity. It is a quick and easy read. I have given it to Jimmy, and he has read it, and he told me he loved it. Again, I am waiting for the movie, and we are in discussions right now with some incredibly large production companies for this movie. So we're super excited. Anyway, Shatsy, the restaurant guy, signing off. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Meredith, for all the work you do. This is awesome. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.